This is breaking news coming in right now. Late last night, a dramatic and highly unusual message from Iran's newly installed supreme leader has triggered emergency meetings inside Washington and sent shockwaves across global markets. What happened in those 12 minutes could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East and possibly the world. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any critical updates as this story develops. Because what unfolds over the next 72 hours could determine whether the United States faces a historic diplomatic humiliation or finds a way to escape a rapidly escalating crisis. At exactly 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday night, Iran's new supreme leader, Moshe Bagham, appeared on state television in Tehran. The speech lasted only 12 minutes, but it was broadcast across every Iranian media network and transmitted through diplomatic channels directly to the United States. At the very same moment, senior officials inside the White House Situation Room began an emergency meeting that has reportedly continued for hours. The silence coming from Washington since that address has been striking. No press conference, no official statement, and no public response from the president. As of early Tuesday morning, the United States government had not issued a single formal reply to Iran's announcement. The timing of this moment could not be more critical. The administration is already facing pressure from global markets, criticism from European allies, and growing concern after several American soldiers were killed during recent operations in the region. Now the White House has been confronted with an ultimatum from Tehran that could force one of the most difficult foreign policy decisions in modern American history. What Iran revealed in that address was not simply rhetoric. It was a direct list of demands delivered to Washington through diplomatic channels, and the consequences of rejecting them could dramatically escalate the conflict. To understand how the situation reached this point, we have to go back just 11 days. That was when the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign known as Operation Epic Fury. The mission, according to officials, was intended to cripple Iran's nuclear program, eliminate its top leadership, and trigger a rapid political collapse inside the country. The president publicly described the operation as swift and decisive. The expectation was that removing Iran's longtime supreme leader would create a power vacuum that could lead to regime change within days. But that assumption quickly proved wrong. Within hours of the assassination of the previous leader, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps moved rapidly to secure control of the government. Instead of chaos or internal conflict, they installed Moshe Bagham as the new supreme leader almost immediately. There was no prolonged struggle for power and no political collapse. Instead, Iran presented a unified front under a younger and more aggressive leadership determined to respond to the attacks. Last night's address marked the moment when the situation changed again. For the first several minutes of the speech, Bagham spoke about what he described as decades of American aggression against Iran. He mentioned sanctions, covert operations, assassinations of Iranian scientists, and support for Israel. That part of the message sounded like familiar political rhetoric, but then the tone shifted. Instead of discussing the past, he began outlining what Iran expects to happen next. According to diplomatic sources, Iran delivered 3 very specific demands to the United States. First, all American military forces must begin withdrawing from key Middle Eastern bases within 30 days. That includes troops stationed in Iraq, Syria, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia. The message reportedly made clear that this withdrawal must begin immediately and cannot be delayed by negotiations. The second demand involves economic sanctions. Iran is calling for the removal of every financial and trade restriction imposed by the United States since 1979. That includes banking limitations, technology transfer bans, and restrictions on oil exports. The timeline given for this demand is 60 days. The third demand may be the most controversial of all. Iran is demanding financial reparations for what it describes as decades of economic warfare. Officials in Tehran have placed the figure at $500 billion to be paid over a 10-year period. But the most alarming part of the address came when Bakum explained what would happen if those demands are rejected. According to the message delivered to Washington, Iran says it will take 3 major actions. The first would be closing the Strait of Hormuz to international shipping once the 30-day deadline expires. That narrow waterway carries a large portion of the world's oil supply, and any disruption could immediately send global energy prices skyrocketing. The second warning involves foreign military alliances. Iran indicated that it could invite expanded security partnerships with both Russia and China, including the potential presence of foreign military facilities on Iranian territory. The third warning raised the most serious concerns among defense analysts. Bakum declared that Iran would exercise what he described as its right to deploy a full nuclear deterrent capability if the crisis continues to escalate. While this speech was unfolding in Tehran, another development quickly added to the tension. Chinese state media released an official statement about 90 minutes later, supporting Iran's position and calling for negotiations that respect Iranian sovereignty. Soon after that, Russia issued a similar message. The language used by both governments signaled clear diplomatic backing for Tehran. Financial markets reacted immediately. Oil prices surged sharply in early Asian trading, with Brent crude climbing above $120 per barrel. Stock futures in the United States dropped before trading was temporarily halted. Investors rushed toward traditional safe haven assets like gold, while cryptocurrency markets experienced a dramatic sell-off. Then another revelation intensified the crisis even further. Early Tuesday morning, a classified Pentagon assessment reportedly leaked to a major American newspaper. The document concluded that while recent airstrikes had damaged some Iranian infrastructure, the broader strategic objectives of the campaign had not been achieved. According to the assessment, Iran still retains the ability to strike American forces in the region and maintain its missile production capabilities. The report goes on to warn that a full military victory would likely require a massive ground invasion involving hundreds of thousands of troops and potentially lasting more than a year. The estimated financial cost could reach trillions of dollars, with thousands of potential American casualties. The document's recommendation was blunt: pursue a negotiated settlement before the conflict expands further. Inside Washington, sources say the president convened a high-level emergency meeting with senior national security officials. Reports suggest the discussion became heated as advisors debated possible responses. Some officials reportedly pushed for escalating military pressure to force Iran back into negotiations. Others warned that the United States may not have the resources or international support needed for a prolonged war. One of the biggest concerns raised during the meeting involves the possibility of Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. If that happens, the United States could face a difficult decision: accept the disruption or launch military operations to reopen the shipping lane. Such a move could risk direct confrontation with advanced missile systems and potentially draw other global powers into the conflict. For now, the administration appears to be delaying any public response while exploring back-channel diplomacy through Switzerland. But every hour of silence increases speculation about how Washington will react. The stakes are enormous. If negotiations happen on Iran's terms, it could mark a significant shift in regional power dynamics. If the demands are rejected, the confrontation could escalate into a much larger conflict with global consequences. Energy markets, financial institutions, and foreign governments are watching closely. The next moves made by both Tehran and Washington will likely determine whether this crisis becomes a diplomatic breakthrough or the beginning of a far more dangerous confrontation. And with the 30-day deadline already counting down, the world is waiting to see which path the United States chooses.